Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Aligned Living System podcast. Nick and I are here together in person. We just got back from a hike and thought it'd be kind of cool to record today since we're both here. So this episode is about moving forward in life. I like how scruffy we both looked. Just looking at us in the video here. Just came off of a nice challenging hike in Elfin Forest here in San Diego. So a beautiful day out. But moving forward is our theme. And I had this vision about a week and a half ago. And it started out with me driving a big bus. And it was like I pull up to the bus stop, and I'd open the door. And the vision started out kind of with old me, right? I opened the door and there were people standing there and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Would you like to get on the bus? You know, this is where we're going. And they're like, oh, I don't know. You know, I kind of got some stuff going on. And we talked about their stuff for a little bit. And then after a little bit, yeah, I guess I won't get on the bus today. Okay. Close the door, go to the next stop, have the same conversation. Oh, one person is going to get on the bus. Okay. You know, now we're like, you know, an hour into this and we've gone a quarter mile. And then it like jumped to now, and it was me pulling up to the bus stop and going, anybody getting on? And oh, I'm not sure. Okay, well, let me know next time. I'll be back around. Close the door. Next bus stop. Anybody getting on? Oh, I'm getting on. Okay. And it turned from this piece of me waiting and kind of moving in other people's paces to people that were ready jumping on. And it was kind of a metaphor really for all areas of life. When we make a decision of this is the pace, this is what's available to me, this is my next right action, and we start to move forward, it's amazing how it helps people sort. And it also helps sort what's appropriate for us, what's not appropriate for us. But there's this huge tendency, I think, particularly for those of us that are empathic, to want to wait and fill the bus and then move forward and have all those conversations, have all the kind of, are you ready? Are you, you know, what are your concerns versus, you know, here's the pace I'm moving at. And, you know, as I'm saying this, you may think, well, I can't do that in all areas of my life. And sure, you know, like when we have families, when we have all these things, there's a lot to consider, yet asking ourselves, is this our normal operating system? When I start to move forward, do I wait for everything to align? Do I enlist everybody, or do I go, I'm setting my course. This is my shape. We talked a lot about shape last time. And when I hold my shape, now I get to move forward. This is what I'm doing. Who's with me? It's amazing how much it helps people get clear on themselves. But when we lose our shape and wait for other people to kind of find theirs, like there's just not the leadership, there's not the direction, there's not the right container for that forward movement, and a lot of lateral movement becomes the game that gets played. Yeah. So how you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great.
How's your hike?
My hike was pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. Especially after a couple of days in Santa Barbara hiking. It was,
there you go.
Yeah.
Some more
hikes. So in terms of the bus metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference between what's the transition piece between letting everyone on the bus
Mm-hmm.
to people opening the door and being really aware of people self-selecting to come in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or really saying, no, you can come on, but you come on, but you need to wait for the next bus. You know, what's the piece that changed?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it makes me think about, like, say, my group programs. Like I would run them and say, all right, you know, I'm gathering to find out who's interested.
Yeah.
Once we have enough people interested, we'll set a date, and then, you know, we can move forward versus here's the next date, who's in. And that whole piece, you know, it's like there's a pace that's happening. This pace is appropriate. This pace is lined up with how I'm operating, what's right for me, because this is my world that I'm leading. But when we pace with everybody else's world around us, it's letting everybody else's world lead. And, you know, I think we talked about this last week too, is that people seldom ask us for what they really want from us, right? And so if people want to move forward in their life, and we go, okay, and they say, I want to move forward in my life, but I want you to wait for me. And so we wait, and then nothing happens. But what people really want is to move forward in their life. And so when we go, I'm moving forward in my life, here's the date, that this is happening. Are you in or are you out?
Yeah.
Now it creates, again, a shape, and people might go, oh, I wish I had more time, but they don't wish they had more time.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just wish that they didn't have to make a decision because it's scary. But once they make the decision, it's what they want.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, so it reminds me a little bit of how Steve Jobs would approach building products.
Yeah.
Where he would build something that he thought was helpful for folks,
Mhm.
and some of them worked out, not all of them.
Mhm.
But the iPhone, the Mac, the watch, like these things have moved forward
Mhm.
because of there's something that is valuable that I can bring to the world, and ideally it gets adopted. And if it didn't, then things would just drop off.
Yeah.
But then there'd be another thing. But he
Yeah.
was ultimately bringing his offerings.
And there's rollout dates. And
Yeah.
it may not be built yet, but we're going to build it by the rollout date. Now everybody's pacing
right.
with the rollout date.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know if you remember the movie Old School. When was that? Probably it was Will Ferrell and Vince Vaughn and
Is this where he goes streaking?
Owen Wilson? Yeah.
Streaking down the road.
And so they go back to college, as like they're in their 40s or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't judge ages. But they go back to school, and there's this scene where Will Ferrell is like running down the street naked, and everybody's like, what are you doing? He goes, we're streaking the quad. We're streaking the quad. They're like, it's just you, Frank the Tank. And it's funny. I often think about that. Like when we try to make this decision at first, where we go, you know what? I'm moving forward at my pace. We're streaking the quad, and then we run down the street naked by ourselves, and nobody's following us. And the missing ingredient there too is, it's almost like you see the parents at the grocery store, and the kids like, refusing to leave, and the mom's like, well, I'll leave you here, and the kid's like, yeah, I don't think so, and they just keep doing it. They can tell the mom's full of shit. But certain moms are like, I'll leave your ass here, and the kid's like, I think she will, and they get up and run behind her, right? And so you can't kind of half do it. Like you got to be all in really with. It can't be like, all right, I'm leaving, and then kind of looking over your shoulder. Anybody coming? It's got to be that full commitment. And I think that was a kind of a challenging learning curve for me. Like, okay, I'm going to set the date and I'm moving forward, but I'm not really setting the date and moving forward. I'm setting the date and then waiting and seeing. Yeah. And this difference, like that bus thing, is like, no, the bus is actually pulling away from the stop right now. That's what's happening. And so it literally is the truth has to be, we're moving forward. And if the truth isn't, just the words are, like, you're streaking the quad by yourself.
Right.
Never as much fun.
Right. Yeah. Give it a shot. Let us know. Yeah. So what I say, the intention behind it, and the actions to do it.
Yeah, it all has to be aligned.
Right. It has to be aligned.
Yeah. And if there's any gap in that, it's like the little kid going, yeah, no, I'm just going to
I can sniff you out.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we look at the different areas of our life, there's always areas that's easier to choose this with. Maybe it's in certain friendships where we find ourselves kind of waiting. Maybe it's in certain, different relationships. Maybe it's in business. Maybe it's, whatever it is in life. Maybe it's with family. I think to experiment with this, because we have to build trust, because, finding the area that feels the most comfortable. And for a lot of people, it is business. It's like, I'm setting the tone here. I'm moving forward, and this is just what's going to happen. And I'm not looking back. I'm not, checking over my shoulder. I'm not, calling people and going, are you sure you don't want to come? Like, it's like, bam, maybe we call people and go, hey, just a reminder, this is the date. This is what we're doing. I'd love to have you. Hopefully you're in.
Yeah.
Let me know, click, that whole piece, because the moment we get drawn into the energy of that sideways kind of churning, it's like the eddies of life. If you don't know what an eddy is, like it's like on a river, maybe there's a rock on the side of the river, a big rock. And just behind that, the water just kind of gets slow and just kind of rotates. And we find those eddies, right? And people try to draw us into their eddies where we're moving forward, and then they go, oh, I want to join you. Can I have a call? Sure. Oh, well, this is going on for me. And then my father's doing this. And then, next thing you know, we're just kind of circling in this little eddy behind them versus like, yeah, like sounds like it's a perfect time for you then, because you got a lot of stuff going on. Here's what we're doing. Here's when we're leaving. Hope to see you there. That kind of forward movement. And I used to be such a sucker to that, not in a bad way, but just like it didn't move forward because I was in the eddy with them going, oh my gosh, yeah, well, let's sort through some of this stuff. Let's get you ready. And until it just happens, it doesn't happen.
Got it. So for some folks, it's easier to step in. I'm repeating back what I think I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So for some folks, it's easier to open that bus and let everyone on.
Mm-hmm.
Some other folks, it's easier to go, I'm opening the door and you're allowed, you're not allowed, right? And these are very different places in someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, to get from here to there, you mentioned a bunch of things, but sorting really self and preferences of self and choosing self is the ultimate vehicle to get from, if we were to call the two buses A and B, to get from A to B. It's really about choosing self. Is that?
Yeah. And right. And that's, I mean, and again, there's different scenarios, right? Like if you have a family, you have kids and your spouse, like you need to choose us, right? There's a thing, but when a lot of the stuff we're looking at in life, we think of it as us, like, oh, I'm forming this group or my business is doing this. How are we going to do this versus, here's what I'm doing, who's with me. And in that piece, like it changes everything.
Yeah.
Because the moment we need we and us to all coordinate, in a place where it's not necessary for we and us to all coordinate, like there's always going to be, somebody else getting off the boat. I don't know why I was just seeing Noah's Ark. Like the cats just got off the boat again, it's like
fucking cats.
But that piece of like, it's not always we and us. And, we tend to utilize that thinking that no person left behind thing, no man left behind, no woman left behind, but it's really generally an excuse for us not to get going with our shit. And, it's blown my mind. I think the more healing that I've done, the more I realized how much of the things that we think we're doing that are like really like good natured and helping others are really our own bullshit excuses to not move forward in our own life.
You're going to get some reaction for that one.
Yeah. And right. It doesn't mean that we don't care. It doesn't mean that we don't love them. But ultimately, like if the most important thing for us was that we were getting stuff done and we want everybody else to grow and expand, we would just move forward.
Right.
And so thinking that we're giving people, what they want, like it gives us a reason to kind of move into a lower gear or to move into neutral, to get into the eddy. And also, now we have a reason not to move forward.
Yeah.
And it's not good for anybody. It really isn't.
So it's really a values-based conversation, right? Because there's values, the things that I need to take care of. There's myself, there's my family, there's my wife, there's my kids, there's my cats, there's my dog, there's my house, whatever, those things that need taken care of. Investments, whatever it may be. And then there's the other things that I may feel are part of mine, but are really just distractions. Right. The guy that cut me off on the street, man, I'm so mad about it. Distraction. Or turn on the news, any news. Who cares which side? Who cares who's saying what? Largely, it's a distraction.
Right? And even as simple as like I'm starting to program. There's two people that are kind of on the fence. I'm going to push it out a week to see if they can join in. Versus like when we extend people's deadlines. I was a teacher for 12 years, and it was hilarious. I would say to my students, I remember we had like every quarter there was basically their portfolios that were due, and I would basically focus on it for the last 2 weeks before they were due. And I remember students getting so mad at me. They're like, other groups have months to do this. Like, why do we only have 2 weeks? And I'm like, because like I want your deadline to feel tangible to you. And if it's 2 months out, like it just sits in the back of your mind and you just churn and nobody gets it done. And then the last 3 days they scramble and freak out. Like now when it's 2 weeks, you guys are working the whole 2 weeks and you're ending up with a better product. If you had 2 months, you'd work on it for 3 days. And it was a really hard concept for them to wrap their head around. And, still again, lateral movement. Well, this isn't fair. I would have done it. I'm like, you haven't handed anything in yet all year, but you would have done this 2 months ago if you knew. Like bullshit. Like I'm giving you 2 weeks because that's the right amount of time for your age, for you to wrap your head around it, and for that deadline to be tangible and present with you, so you can get it done now. Because 2 months might as well be 2 years.
And that reaction you were just describing, that you put this bullshit that everyone else gets. That's I would argue that's part of the distraction.
It's part of the lateral movement. Now I shouldn't have to do this because I'm mad at David for not giving me the right amount of time.
It's unfair. And takes me off course from the thing that I should really be focusing on at that age. And you can the same shit happens now. Like the class isn't filled. People didn't adapt to it. And this is why people you know, it happens a lot in build technology world, like sell the subscriptions.
Mhm.
And then once Tesla did this,
Yeah, yeah,
sell the
yeah,
subscriptions.
sell the trucks,
Yeah. And then someone will buy them.
sell the cars, yeah.
Right. Or you just go, oh, it didn't work out.
Yeah. We're pushing out the date.
Yeah, we canceled the program. Why? Because absolutely no one signed up.
Yeah.
Then it was just about
Yeah, a lot of people do that, how they build out their courses, how they build out their video courses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that in that class too, it was funny because, you know, I'm talking about I think that group was like 14 kids, middle schoolers, like like 7th through 9th graders. And there was like 2 or 3 kids that got all mad and still never handed their shit in because they never handed their shit in. But then the other like 10 or 11 kids in there were like, this is focus time, right? And it really worked for them. And so I didn't adjust because the 2 or 3 kids that got mad or their parents that called got mad. Like, your kid didn't hand shit. You think the 2 months was going to help them?
Yeah.
Like, don't believe his bullshit, right? And so it again, it is like, so does pushback from the people that are making, you know, excuses, that want to be lateral, that don't want to move forward, that don't want to be responsible for themselves. Are we now accommodating them? And if I was, I would have changed it and said, okay, now, you know, this didn't work out for those 2 that never hand their stuff in. So we're going to start 2 months ahead of time now. And now 7 of you aren't going to hand it in.
Right. So going to the B version of the school bus metaphor, right? Not the all takers, but the folks who either self-select or the bus driver says, get on.
Yeah.
The kids who didn't hand in anything and didn't hand in anything all semester. They were the ones going, no, I don't like the seats on that bus. Like, I'm going to like, you just self-selected out.
Yeah. That whole piece of like, is the heat on? You know, will I get my own seat? Click. Moving forward, right?
Meanwhile, people are getting on the bus in front of this person going, this works for me.
Yeah.
This seems fair.
Yeah. And it's funny because it goes to that whole piece of like, when we find ourselves pretending to be confused or pretending to go, well, what about this? Right. Like versus like we know we're not in our alignment. We know we're not in our certainty. We know we're not in our forward moving when we're like, I'm confused. I don't know. Will I get my own seat? You're not getting any seat.
I once had an individual who was rolling out to me at a job where I had a job, not working for myself. And this person just didn't understand anything. You know, I'm confused by this thing. And there's 8 other people around the table going, oh my God, always, this isn't hard, always confused. I don't understand. And I'm going, this is now a problem.
Yeah. Is this mud over there that I can go get stuck in?
Yeah.
All right.
And then I waited, like as a responsible, don't want to make a decision that is not the right decision for me, this department, for the people, for this person. I was like, well, let me see if this is what everyone is saying. Like, I need to validate this because I'm going to be the one who's ultimately responsible. And sure enough, everything was a problem. Everything was confusing.
Yeah.
And that just didn't work out.
And you can only do so much in the corporate world, but like, you know, in private business, you go, all right, well, sounds like this isn't for you. The rest of us that aren't confused are moving forward.
Right. Right.
And it is this like indulging people in stuff that they really don't even want to be indulged in, right? Like, how tired do you think that guy was of being confused? You know, it's funny, we were doing a group program the other day. We were talking about like locking in on our alignment and the masculine energy of that structure of clarity. And it was talking about kind of being in decision point going. I said, all right, well, let's lock you in on the energy. Let's just bring it in and just bring the energy up. And I was like, how do you feel? He's like, well, it's like this, this, and this. And the clarity was instant. Like the confusion was gone. And it was so funny. I'm like, that's the addiction. Like, that's what you keep hooking your rubber band to, is that piece of, you know, I'm processing it, I'm figuring it out. And as soon as we hooked it to certainty, he was just like, oh, well, it's this, this, and this, and this is what I think about that. And I'm not doing that anymore. And I'm doing this. I'm like, wow, well, we just solved a month's worth of work in 30 seconds. Yeah. And it's so funny how when we indulge in those parts of us that, you know, we've come to know in really positive ways, like we pretend they're working for us and we believe they're working for us. And then at a certain point we go, shit, like, I'm just tired of being confused. Like, it's not working. And confused is the location. And when we relocate ourselves to a clear place of awareness where we're locked in on our truth and we're not kind of patronizing our own bullshit, we basically, like, the certainty just comes up and we already know.
So talk about more the clear as a location. What does that mean?
So I mean, I did this a little bit last week, right? In the podcast. So like, if I'm right here, I'm in my clarity, right? There's a certainty. There's not a lot of congestion. There's energetically. Yeah. There's like no no other thoughts going on for me, really. It's like kind of blank. But the moment I let myself lose shape and I drop down here, everything just starts to get a little bit fuzzy. Everything, there's a lot of like, I can get kind of pulled into the side, like, oh, what's going on over there? Like, oh, I'm not really clear. And so it's a place that we hold ourselves inside. And it's so funny even to talk from this place, because I'm like, it's like I have to find the words to come out, and it takes energy for it to happen versus, and this is the aligned living work. We lock in, we bring the energy up and click in, and then, now there's no energy used at all to find the words, to let it come out. It's just clear flowing ease.
Yeah.
And there's no congestion. There's no confusion.
It's like a machine that knows exactly what to do and how to function.
Yeah. And that's really what we're aligning inside of ourselves. But the moment, bring it back down again and go, yeah, I'm kind of confused, Nick. What were we talking about?
No idea.
The hike was cool. It's beautiful out.
Distraction.
Was it about forward?
Yeah.
Were you moving forward? Is that what was?
Someone was moving forward.
Yeah, and then click.
And now we know what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
And to understand it as a location, I mean, that's really where this work comes in, right? Is like, there's a thing that we're working with the aligned living system to find that inside of ourselves, know how to stabilize it, know how to lock it in, to operate in that certainty. And it's just so funny to watch people click into it, because they're like, oh, this, and this, I'm not doing that anymore. This is what I'm doing. This is actually where I want to put my energy. All that other thing, yeah, that project, that's really, I was just kind of spinning my wheels with that, trying to find something to be busy. It's not interesting. Here's what I'm doing. Like, shit, you just cleared your plate. That's the last 6 months of your life that you just organized in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And, it's available to us, right? It's available.
And that's how shit gets done.
That's how shit gets done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And no judgment there, right? Like, it's fairly new in my reality for, the number of years I've been on the planet versus the number of years I've had this access to this. Like, it's just part of our evolution. And so, so fun to introduce people to it. And I think one of the things that's kind of cool about it is it's contagious. So if you're listening right now and you're tapped in, you're probably feeling yourself moving into greater clarity. And if I let go of it and let myself just get a little bit fuzzy, you're finding like, oh, well, now I'm getting a little fuzzy. Nick's convincing us right now that he's getting a little fuzzy. And then click it back in, get the energy going again. Like, oh, now I'm starting to get a little more clear. There's just like, I want to sit a little bit more straight. My spine wants to be a little more locked in. My thinking isn't distracted in the same way.
Yeah.
And it's the cool thing about it is, like, if you're leading a team or, your business, your family, your friends, whatever, when you lock in on like that, it starts to become contagious, and other people just start to let go of their fuzziness and gain their clarity as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Helpful.
Yeah.
Useful.
Yeah. I mean,
so you have folks in the program,
mm-hmm.
you have a weekly going on. And what about for folks who are listening, haven't subscribed yet,
Mm-hmm.
Want to know more, want to maybe experience it for themselves? What's available?
So in the show notes, there's links to a lot of the free content that we have, whether it's through my book, through a free video course. There's a bunch of stuff on there. And then there's options to do, like, if people want to do a one-to-one session with me right now, I'm offering a discounted first one-to-one session that you can sign up. There's a link for that. And then people can get into a group program, or, I work with a handful of people one-to-one now, and have openings here and there if people want to go really into that deep dive with the one-to-one stuff. But the group stuff, it's been so fun, like what's available with the group stuff now. I'm just seeing that growing more and more now, with
Nice.
And just the effectiveness as that's dialing in.
And then other people learn from each other.
Yeah.
So that's a cool dynamic.
Yeah. And it's always hilarious too, because when people come together, there's a theme that's always going on for the group that's connected to the group, and it's why they're there to work with each other. And like, it's funny, the last one was actually forward movement. So it's kind of funny that we're talking about that. I didn't even think about it, but I'll have another group coming up soon, and it'll be interesting to see what that theme is.
Nice.
But it's always the right people just get pulled together.
And these are 10-week groups?
10-week groups. Yeah.
10-week groups.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's other possibilities after that to keep doing the work, but that's where it all starts, is either with a one-to-one and then going into either 10-week or like I said, I work with a handful of people one-to-one.
Yeah.
In 10-week segments as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So great stuff. Thanks for listening. And yeah, what were we talking about? Like
Getting clear, David.
Oh, okay.
Getting clear,
Yeah.
moving forward.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. So if you need any of that in your life, awesome.
Find a link.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for listening and tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Looking forward to connecting. Thanks for listening to part 2 of this 3-part series, and join us next week as Janine and I dive deeper into intimate relationships. See you next week. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, and if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.